My dude just a talker, ain't ready for 5 rounds. He used to be the champ, now he barely lasts 3 rounds. MMA Dawgs, Hector and Dan, worldwide. Philly to Philippines, fighters tapping out for guillotines. Losing is a nightmare, winning is a damn dream. Damn G, you gon' push a parlay. You should think about tapping, or that arm gon' break. Snap, make money in the flash. Got 3 days off, time to get that cash. Weekends end too quick, make your mind up fast. Place your bets, make you a splash. Pop bottles from your earnings, get trashed.
Okay, we are on the air.
All right, this sounds great. Welcome, my MMA Dawgs family. As always, we want to thank you for tuning in. Now, if you're watching this video, it is our exclusive premium betting picks for UFC 165. So my dog and I, Dan, are very excited to talk about these fights. The homework is done. The tally is in. We are all set to rock and roll here. And there's a few things I want to cover before we dive into these fights, dog. Just a couple things. The first thing is it's a disclaimer. You know, you always want to be careful when it comes to betting and betting on sports. You never want to overextend yourself. You never want to bet more than you can afford to lose, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where, you know, it's not a positive thing in your life. So you always want to get that under control. Second thing is make sure that where you're betting, it's legal. For example, Las Vegas, depending on the country that you're living in, you know, you can find a casino or a sports book or somewhere you can bet. So just make sure it's all fair game. And then the third thing is if you're interested in looking at our history, if you're interested in what the heck are these guys talking about, 5 stars and 4 stars and 3 stars, go over to our website. So it's MMADAWGS.com, MMADawgs.com. You can see our proven track record. You can see all the great work my dog's been doing with the videos and the social media and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to waste too much time talking about stuff that you guys may already know. And so let's dive right into it, dog. Let me ask you a question, Dan. Are you excited for UFC 165?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Oh, man.
I can't believe how fast this fight came up. It seemed like just yesterday Glover was knocking out Ryan Bader.
Yep, it seemed like it was just yesterday. Ryan Bader was looking okay, and then all of a sudden, boom, he knocked out. Just like we predicted, nonetheless. But it's just funny, you know, to think back on fights and see how fighters. A really interesting thing I always think about, and I know you and I talk about it, is the value and the potential of certain fighters. But if a fighter can't win, there's no real value. There's no real potential. And we were actually just talking about that before we started shooting this video. But yeah, so let's dive right into it. Let's go straight into the betting picks. Guaranteed or your money back for this pay-per-view event. So for this one, it started out, you know, the process started out with about 6 different guys. 6 different guys that were just, you know, right on the cusp of making it, and 3 of them made it. 3 guys out of these fights made it to where my dog and I feel like we could put our stamp on it, guarantee it, and say, hey, you know what? These 3 guys are the guys worth betting on. So let's start off with number 3. Number 3, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, this guy, all he does is win. All this guy does is win. He's 20-0. And one thing that really impresses me about this guy is that, you know, he comes from a combat sambo background. And his wrestling, his grappling is just unbelievable. I mean, he's on the cusp of making it, in my opinion, making it big and making a permanent top 10 spot home in the lightweight division for himself. And one of the things I really like about this guy is he trains at AKA with Cain Velasquez and Javier Mendez and John Fitch and all those beasts over there. So you know, he's coming from Russia and coming to America and positioning himself to succeed, and that's what I see this guy doing. I mean, he's just a winner, and I feel very, very confident with his ability in this particular fight, particular matchup with Pat Healy. At first glance, I try and look for things that stand out and things that really glare and say, you know what, something's wrong here. Maybe he won't win. And the one thing that stood out to me is that Pat Healy is a big, strong wrestler himself. He's this big, strong guy. There's no quit in him. And all it took was for me to watch one particular fight. I shouldn't say all it took. One particular fight that really clinched the deal for me was the Hirota Pat Healy fight, and the ability that Hirota had to take him down. Because in my opinion, Nurmagomedov's takedowns and his grappling is much better than Hirota. Hirota's decent, but he's not the eagle. He's not Nurmagomedov, and I really see this opportunity for him to shine, and to see him sitting at around -250. You can even find him at -230. I really, really like that play. Now this one is 3 stars, so it's a small to medium play. It's a do not parlay. If you parlay this pick, though, I will not be disappointed, or I won't criticize it, because for me, he was on the cusp of making it 4 stars. But like I said, me personally, I would prefer to make it a small to medium play, especially considering the next 2 guys that we have coming up. And with 3-star picks, right now I'm sitting at around 61%. And like I said, I do believe Nurmagomedov will be in that 61%. I have a lot of confidence that he will be in that percentage. But as far as a parlay goes, with parlays, what I've found is two guys in a parlay. Once you go up higher than 2, it's fun and it's exciting, and the payout always looks real nice. But it's tough to hit those. It really is. And so I like him. I like Nurmagomedov here, 3 stars. And it's up to you whether you parlay him. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it, but I would not I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of reality to make him a medium-sized bet. So that's number 1 guy. The number two, we have a guy coming straight out of San Diego. We got Myles the Fury Jury. Now Myles Jury, he's sitting at around, you can get him as low as -355. And now in this particular fight, Myles Jury is going up against Mike Ricci, a guy who has 1 foot in the octagon and 1 foot out of the octagon cage. Because every time I watch this guy fight, it's like, does he really want to be in there? Does he really want to, actions speak louder than words. And for a lot of these guys, when you listen to their interviews and you listen to what they have to say, they talk a good game. Oh, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna win and this and this and this and they go in there and they show up the same old way we've always seen them. But with Mike Ricci, he looks so disinterested, so unhappy, so just not what you want to not what you want to see out of a guy who you're investing your hard-earned money on. And with Myles Jury, it's the complete opposite. He's just gone out there, dominated guys, taking them down, submitting them. And in this particular fight, that's where Myles Jury will have the advantage. And I have an interesting situation here where my dog and I were talking about it, and we always try and look for the worst case scenario. So what if Mike Ricci actually shows up for this fight? What if he actually shows up, despite the fact that he's got a nasty habit of losing one, winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one, winning one? What if he actually shows up? You know what I told my dog? I told Dan, I said, Dan, you know what? If Mike Ricci actually shows up, I hope he actually shows up, because Myles Jury will have a 30-27 unanimous decision on his hands. I said, and if he doesn't show up, Myles Jury will have a first or second round submission. And I'm looking towards second round submission. But at worst case scenario, I see Myles Jury winning a 30-27 decision. But I really think that Myles will get the finish in here, especially since Mike Ricci's strength in this particular fight, especially, should be to keep it on the feet, to strike with him. But Myles Jury, he's motivated, constantly progressing. Every time I see him, I'm more and more impressed by this guy. I'm actually surprised that we can find him at around -355, -375, especially considering, like I said, the fact that this Mike Ricci guy, he's just a flake, hot and cold, and you never want to make your pick on a guy based off what the other guy is or isn't. But like I said, with Myles Jury just constantly improving, working out of alliance, working with great Mike Chandler and Jeremy Stevens and a bunch of quality guys. He's just motivated, coming up on top. I wouldn't be surprised if Jury and Khabib cross paths pretty soon. And that's it for Myles Jury. I mean, I have a lot of faith in this guy. My 4-star picks, knock on wood, they're sitting at 80% right now. So Myles Jury, parlay him, do whatever you want to do with this guy, but he will definitely be winning this fight. One thing I want to keep in mind also is for inside the distance, I only like to play my 5-star guys for inside the distance. Any guys that's 4 or 3 stars, honestly, guys, it's tough enough to predict it. You could watch a heavyweight fight and say, you know what, this fight's not leaving the first round or round and a half, and then these assholes, they go to 3-round decisions. So you definitely want to be careful. So I would recommend doing the prop bet just because you can dig yourself a hole doing those. But it's totally your call. But I'm going 4 stars, Myles Jury, medium to large play, parlay worthy. And number 1, last but not least, we have a guy who, fortunately or unfortunately, whether you like him or not, he has to be in the talks, in the discussion of a GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to MMA. This guy is just on another planet. I mean, this guy, he's really, really good, and that's Johnny Bones Jones. And this guy, the really cool part about him is that he can win the fight on his feet. He can win the fight on the ground by taking you down. He's one of the best wrestlers in all of MMA. We saw what he did to Chael Sonnen, one of the best wrestlers in MMA. He can win a nice, safe decision like he did to Rashad Evans. So he's got so many ways of winning. And with Gustafsson, I understand he's tall, and I understand it's MMA, and anything can happen, and he could land a punch, a combination, or something like that. But with a guy like Jon Jones, I have a lot of faith in this guy's skills and abilities. He's over there training with Jackson's Greg Jackson pretty much in a nutshell says, you know what, I'm in this guy's corner and screw everybody else. Look what happened with Rashad Evans. Jon Jones is my guy, and that's it, and that's that, and that's all she wrote. So with Jon Jones, I see him taking down Gustafsson in this fight. I see him giving him some of those nasty elbows, ground and pound. If Gustafsson's a tough guy. Don't get me wrong. After the fight he had with Shogun, I was really sold on this guy. But I'm also very realistic, and I feel like I feel very similar to the way that I did when I saw Ryan Bader fight, in the sense that they threw him to the wolves too soon. And with Gustafsson, I feel like a few more fights against a couple of more top guys would do him well before facing Jon Jones. But it's a little too soon. Now he's a fighter, so I don't blame him, and he's a good fighter, so I definitely don't blame him. But it's a little bit too much for him right now. A little bit too soon. I know he's been training at Alliance with Phil Davis and Brandon Vera and all those guys. But it's just good. Jon Jones is just on another level. So I see him getting Jon Jones here getting a stoppage, whether he softens him up and lands a choke, or just brutalizes him, and the refs has to step in and stop the fight. So that's a 5-star pick, babe. We got large to huge, parlay worthy. He's sitting around minus 850. So that may turn some people off. But I've seen this song and dance before. And especially with a guy like Jon Jones, it is well worth it. And right now, 5 stars are hitting at 100%, 12-0. So I have a lot of faith in Jon Jones. And that wraps it up. So those are the 3 picks. Nurmagomedov, 3 stars. Myles Jury, 4 stars. Jon Jones, 5 stars. And one thing that I feel personally, when I handicap the fights and I do my research, and my dog and I go back and forth endlessly for hours, sometimes we start off with 6 guys, 7 guys, 5 guys, whatever it may be, and when we narrow it down, it's a little disappointing because we end up with 3 guys, 2 guys. I've even done 13 fights and ended up with 1 guy. And it's a little disappointing, to be honest with you guys, because it's like, man, I wanna have more action. I want to play in more of these fights. But there is a problem. That's the problem. Sometimes when you play too many fights, it's MMA. We all know this, and anything can happen. So you really want to narrow it down, and then really narrow it down and really squeeze it in there and get it in there and get it under the microscope, and really look at these guys. And these are 3 guys that I have a lot of faith in, and I feel very comfortable endorsing, not only personally, but my dog and everything that we worked so hard for here. So yep, those 3 guys for sure. And with that being said, there's plenty more to talk about. Perhaps we will uncover something or help you make a decision on a fighter that you're leaning or maybe thinking about, or maybe just have a gut feeling or have an insider knowledge about something, and you maybe with our discussion will help you untangle that web and really take a look and see how you feel about it. So, Dog, what I want to do here is let's take it to the co-main event, because this is a very, very interesting fight. You and I are on opposite sides here, and let's talk about it. So we have Renan Barao taking on Eddie Wineland, and Renan Barao is the interim bantamweight champion, of course. So it's going to be a 5-round fight. Renan Barao has been in these fights before. Eddie Wineland has not, but this fight is very, very, very interesting. Dog, I want to take a little break here and let you jump in here and talk. Dog, what do you go ahead and dissect this fight for us, Dan. What do you see here in Renan Barao versus Eddie Wineland?
Yeah, Dog, this fight, we were really looking forward to seeing it at I think it was UFC 161 before injury pushed it back to UFC 165, and man, this fight is going to be awesome. I really like Renan Barao a lot, but what I have seen with Eddie Wineland in his last 2 fights is a vast improvement, and the old Eddie Wineland that we expected in the UFC before he had those back-to-back losses. So I gotta say that with what Wineland did to Scott Jorgensen, first guy to ever knock him out, was very, very impressive. He was beating him up the whole round. He kind of slowed down. It looked like he was losing the second round before he actually got the knockout. But Renan Barao, man, this guy's a monster. This guy has been undefeated ever since he lost his very first fight of his career, way back before his UFC days. And Renan Barao, I mean, this guy, I don't know if you guys seen the Brad Pickett fight where he had Brad Pickett in all sorts of trouble, and then he jumped on him like a spider basically, and got the rear naked choke, and then Michael McDonald was another one. But there's been some times where I've seen vulnerability with Renan Barao standing up. He's got great leg kicks, he's got great speed, but he's got good striking offense, but his striking defense isn't bad. But I just see holes in it that Eddie Wineland, I think, is going to expose. And just based on that alone, and Eddie Wineland like coming off hungry, I really think Eddie Wineland is going to go out there and knock out Renan Barao. Everyone wants to see Renan Barao fight Dominic Cruz, of course, but Dominic Cruz is going to go on no fights in 2012 and 2013 if he doesn't get in the octagon before the end of the year. And I think we're actually going to see Eddie Wineland versus Dominic Cruz, because I don't think Renan Barao is going to beat Eddie Wineland. Just my opinion, but I think we're going to see a new interim champ tomorrow night.
Yeah, Dog, those are all very, very good points. And for me, I take a look at a guy like Renan Barao, and coming out of the Novo Nhau camp in Brazil, training partners, best guys, Jose Aldo, Dantes, the Bellator fighter, and I see this guy, and the one thing that really, really impresses me about Renan Barao is when he gets an opportunity to when he's on the ground and he gets an opportunity to use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the quickness and the ability that he has to get into a dominant position and then work submission or get into a dominant position and boom, right away land the choke, or get that arm, or whatever submission he's working for. But just the quickness that he has to do that is just very, very, very impressive. And in my opinion, it would be best suited for Renan Barao to take a little bit of a different approach towards his game plan, in the sense of he likes it. From watching the fight, it looks to me like he enjoys the stand up, and he's good at it. I don't blame him for that. He trains a lot with Jose Aldo, so he feels confident in it. But I feel like if he were to approach fights with a more of a mentality of my first objective is to take down the fighter, so get the takedown and then start working my jiu-jitsu. To me, that would really make Renan Barao just, oh man, this guy would just be, he would be like minus 1,200, minus 1,500. But he likes to play around on the feet and strike. And in this particular matchup, you pointed out, Eddie Wineland has knockout power. And Renan Barao has been knocked down before. He's been hit before. And not even by the strongest of punchers. Not even by the strongest of strikes. What's that guy's name, dog? I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. That knocked him, or that had him hurt or rocked him. Here, I'll look up his name right now.
Cole Escovedo.
That's the guy I'm thinking of, Cole Escovedo. And for that, I don't like that. With Michael Chandler, in my opinion, is underrated, and that didn't surprise me that laser landed. But with Cole Escovedo, it's like, really. And now, like, as you guys know, I'm not a real. I like to pick winners or losers. I don't really like to focus too much on the price tag or the value. But in this particular fight, it's part of the formula, of course. It's part of looking at things. But in this particular fight, it really stands out to me. I mean, sitting at minus 700, sitting at minus 750, minus 650. That is just that is a steep price tag to pay a guy who, like my dog pointed out, strike defense could be better. Somehow hands end up in positions where there's a through, and that is a concern. That is very much a concern. Now, with that all said, that's why I can't make it a betting pick. But I am going to go with Barao by submission, somewhere in the fourth round, third or fourth or fifth round, because I think Wineland is definitely tough. But yeah, that's why I can't back it as a betting pick, just because there are those just a few question marks for that price tag. It's just craziness. So moving right along to the next one, and guys, I want to clear one thing up. Sending the text file over to so that we can take a look at betting picks on paper and don't necessarily have to write it down or memorize it. We'll send it over in text file. And moving right along here, Brendan Schaub versus Matt the Meathead Mitrione, a guy who made me money. I remember how much money he made me when I bet on him against Kimbo Slice. I was on block. I can believe that Matt Mitrione was the underdog in that fight, and everybody was jumping up and down for Kimbo Slice. But Brendan Schaub versus Matt Mitrione, the heavyweight fight. For this particular fight, Dan, what are your thoughts on it? What do you got for us?
Yeah, dog. This fight could go either way. I think the line is pretty even, and I think it's pretty accurate at the even odds there. I'm leaning towards Brendan Schaub, even though he's got the weaker chin. I think that Matt Mitrione has been a little bit less technical than Brendan Schaub, and I think Brendan Schaub is the smarter game plan kind of guy, as we saw in his last fight with LeVar Johnson. Having said that, though, Matt Mitrione has knockout power, and he too can also be knocked out. So I think either guy could win this fight, but I just feel like Brendan Schaub's going to win. But this is one of those heavyweight fights where it could go either way, and I just want to sit back and watch it and not have any worries about it, regardless if we had money on it or if we had given advice towards one guy over the other. I think either guy has an even chance at winning this fight.
Yeah, for me, for this particular fight, the one thing that stands out to me is Brendan Schaub is too much of a thinker, so much that it hurts his ability inside the octagon. And one fight that really just cemented that thing, that particular thought for me was the fight with LeVar Johnson. We were right there, front and center, watching this thing, and this guy could not finish LeVar Johnson. I mean, it was just embarrassing because LeVar, we all know, has no ground game whatsoever, and Brendan Schaub, he's down there Instagramming, Twittering, and Facebooking, and doing all this stuff with the Gracie brothers in L.A. and he's training in Hollywood Jiu-Jitsu and this and that, and you would think that a guy like that, would learn rather quickly and would be able to go out there and submit LeVar Johnson in the first round, but that wasn't the case. And LeVar Johnson has power, yes, but LeVar Johnson is slow. He's slow. He's like a dinosaur, just very slow. And Matt Mitrione, he's got power, but Matt Mitrione is quick. Matt Mitrione is athletic. And, having played in the NFL, and it's real funny, Mitrione played in the NFL, Brandon Schaub was on the practice squad. These guys going back and forth talking smack to each other. And every time I watch Matt Mitrione fight, he goes in there and he just has this octagon presence where he's going in there, he's fighting, he doesn't overthink things, he lets his hands go. He's just, to me, Matt Mitrione is more of a natural fighter in the sense that he just has, time distance is much better than Brendan Schaub, and Brendan Schaub he just gets knocked out. Brendan Schaub says that what did he say in that countdown show? He says Brendan Schaub, talking about himself in the third person, he shows up to fight in main events, or he shows up to fight on the main pay-per-views. And Matt goes, what? He shows up and gets knocked out? If that's what he calls fighting, climbs an invisible ladder. And it was just so funny because that's exactly how I feel about it. I mean, Brendan Schaub is he's too big for his britches, He thinks he's this guy and it's my life and this and that. But Matt Mitrione is going to go out there and knock out Brendan Schaub with a chin. When you don't have a chin, there's not much you can do about it. And I really think Matt Mitrione is going to go out there and knock out Brendan Schaub in the first round. And that'll be that. So moving on to the next one. This is a really interesting fight. My dog has a lot of time on it. And that is Costa Philippou versus Francis Carmont. 5 pounds in Canada. Dog, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my first instincts on the fight were, Costa Philippou was going to go out there and have his way with Francis Carmont. I didn't really like what we saw with Carmont against Tom Lawler. He looked better, only slightly better, against Lorenz Larkin. And, and let's face it, Costa Philippou, he's coming off that impressive win over Tim Boetsch, but Tim Boetsch went into that fight injured. And even in that fight, there's some vulnerability there for Costa, where Tim Boetsch landed a front kick at the end of the first round, and if that wasn't the last few seconds of the round, I think it would have been all over for Costa Philippou. So we're seeing a suspect chin all of a sudden on Costa Philippou, and you can't really say anything too bad about that either, because not a lot of people can handle a front kick. Just ask Alistair Overeem. But Francis Carmont, he's fought some good guys. He was losing against Magnus Sedenblad, and came back and won in that fight. And I can't really say if he won or lost against Tom Lawler. That fight could have gone either way. And if it was in a different country, it wasn't in Canada, I would say Tom Lawler would have got the decision. But he just didn't do enough. So this is one of those fights where I see it could be very one-sided for Costa. I'd be surprised if it's very one-sided for Francis Carmont, but it could be. But I could see either guy winning this fight, just squeaking by with a decision just by doing just enough, but not very impressively for either guy. Because I've seen Costa Philippou also win some boring decisions. One of them I think was his fight with Court McGee. That fight was a fight that he won, but I still feel like it wasn't all that exciting. Just kind of like how Francis Carmont. So I could see this fight not being very entertaining, and I'd be very surprised if it was fight of the night. But we'll see. But I think Costa Philippou is going to get a decision here, but not interested at all on money or betting or anything on it.
Yeah, dog. Good little points there. I like what you what you observe here with this particular fight. At first glance, I thought Costa Philippou, and I think that I thought that he would be able to keep his distance and punch Carmont in the face, keep his distance, push him away, punch him in the face, and either get the knockout or a decision. And then as I watched the fight footage and watched the fight tapes, I remembered why judges love Francis Carmont so much. And this guy, man, he just puts his opponent up against the cage, puts himself in what appears to be a dominant position, and wins decisions. I mean, this guy just goes out there, does what he needs to do to win the fights in the judges' eyes, and he just wins. Now with Costa, really interesting. A couple things to note. He left the fight team. He left it. He says it has nothing to do with any beef or anything like that. That he left on good terms. But anytime a fighter changes fight camps, for me, that's that I don't like that. Usually, it's not better. Usually, it turns out for the worse. There's one side of looking at it is that now that he's not training with White, he can have more undivided attention. And but the other side is, well, now he's not training with Weidman, Serra-Longo, Matsera, Ray Longo, then he might not have the quality of training and advice he could have. So there's one positive, one negative, right? Like just like anything in life. But the more fights that I watch of this guy, I really like boxing, but that's really all I like. And with Francis Carmont, he is in a very interesting situation in this fight. He does not have to worry about getting taken down. In his last fights, he's had to worry about he's had in a few like for example, the Tom Lawler one, he had to worry about getting taken down. And in the Lorenz Larkin fight, he was being more conservative, more of a game planner, and putting him up against the fence. And it's not fun or exciting to watch, and I understand that, but it is what it took for him to win the fight. And like I said, at first glance, I thought Costa will have his way with him, but after I watched a Tim Boetsch fight and Tim Boetsch being injured and just what he showed me there, and then some of the interviews that I've seen with Costa where he talks about doubting himself, and maybe he's surreal on his guy because everybody doubts themselves to certain degrees at certain points in their life. But for me, with this fight being in Canada, with Francis Carmont, that robbery that he had, I feel it was a robbery on Tom Lawler, and his ability to put the fight in his cage. I have to favor Carmont slightly here by decision, and I feel like that the outcome that is more likely here. So that's where I'm going with. I'm going with Carmont by decision, and. And Nurmagomedov, we already talked about that fight, so we'll move right along. Myles Jury, Mike Ricci, we spoke about that one. Menjivar versus Wilson Reis or Wilson Reis. And for this one, Dan, what do you see here in Menjivar and Wilson?
Yeah, this fight was actually scheduled for Menjivar versus Kid Yamamoto. And Wilson Reis is just replacing Kid Yamamoto, who is injured. And this is Ivan Menjivar is coming off a submission loss to Uriah Faber in that rematch they had back in February, and this is a fight that I also could see go either way. My original pick was Ivan Menjivar, and my ultimate pick is Ivan Menjivar via decision. And ultimately, I don't see really either guy finishing the fight, and I think that has a lot to do with why we didn't make this one a betting pick. This fight will probably go the distance, and it could go to either guy. I favor Menjivar just because it's in Canada, kind of like my dog favors Carmont because it's in Canada. But when it goes the distance, most of the time, if it's a close fight, the hometown guy is going to win. But you can't count out Brazil. I don't know if you guys remember back in UFC 156, it was pretty much all Brazil on that card, and that fight wasn't even in Brazil. It was in Las Vegas. And, it involved a comeback or two. And but I think the only Brazilian that lost that night wasn't even on the pay-per-view, and it was only a split decision. So you can't count out Brazil when you put them up against guys that are from the United States, that are from Canada, just because the fight's in Canada and it isn't in the United States. So Brazil versus Canada. In Canada, I'm going with Ivan Menjivar, but can't count out Brazil. So do not bet.
Yep, good points, Doc. For this one, Ivan Menjivar carries a weight. He carries a big name. We all pretty much know who he is. We've seen him in big fights, and he's a good fighter, well-rounded fighter. In this particular fight, to me, it is a stylistic matchup: striker versus grappler. Ivan Menjivar's best interest here is to keep the fight on the feet, and for Wilson, it's his best option is to take this fight down to the ground. Real interesting guy. Out of El Salvador, fights out of Montreal. Tri-star. But with Wilson, he was on the. I don't know if you guys remember him or not. He was the Ultimate Fighter coach for jiu-jitsu for Dominic Cruz, and he's been silent. He's been quiet, but he's only lost to a couple of really good guys, and I think it's his opportunity here. It's his opportunity to shine, and from the fight that I watched, it looks like Ivan Menjivar is regressing. Now, it would not surprise me if Ivan Menjivar goes out there and shows us the best Ivan Menjivar that we've seen in a long time. A few years. He's only 31 years old, so he's not old at all. He's been around the fight game for a while, but with Wilson, like I said, it's more of an opportunity to show off his jiu-jitsu skills. I'm not going to make it easy for him to take him down, but I think Wilson knows that going into this fight. Usually when it's striker versus grappler, I go with the grappler, and that's going to be the case here. The odds are really interesting. The only reason, in my opinion, why Ivan is it's over on Ivan's side is because he's a favorite. Is because he's more, like I said, more of a known name, more of the casual fan, more of a casual fan knows exactly who he is. Whereas Wilson, it's like, oh, Wilson, who the hell is this guy? So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with a grapple. I think he'll get a submission in the second round. Not first, I think it'll be in the second round. But like my dog said, I don't have interest in betting this particular fight just because a lot of times the guy has a loss. And he's got his back against the wall. He'll come out there and show us the best version we've seen in a while. So it would not surprise me at all if Menjivar wins this fight. So moving along to the next one. This is a real interesting fight. My dog's real big on one of these guys. It's Stephen Thompson versus Chris Clements. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, dog. This fight, I'm really excited for it. Didn't make the cut just because, Chris Clements is one of those guys that you count him out and then he surprises you. He's obviously from Canada, and with the fight being in Canada, it's a really tough call. But Stephen Thompson, I was really impressed with his fight with Renan Barao. It was the last UFC fight I was at back at UFC 160, and I thought he was going to buckle under pressure in that fight, and he didn't. He showed some composure, and ultimately just looked better everywhere. I still think Stephen Thompson's gonna go out there and finish Chris Clements in the second or third round, possibly a decision, but not likely. Chris Clements comes on strong real early, which could be trouble for Stephen Thompson, but I'm going to go with Stephen Thompson by second round knockout. He's going to knock him out like he knocked out Dan Stigen. He's going to knock him out by a foot, as I like to say. Knockout by a foot.
I'll never forget that fight, dog. That was
UFC
we were there. Stephen Thompson was a 4-star pick for me, and I had him. I had him and a bunch of other guys. I had like 4-star picks that night, and I swept them all. And it's real interesting, dog. You bring up good points about Stephen Thompson. the one thing I want to point out about Chris Clements is he does have his back against the wall. If he loses here, he will never have another opportunity in the UFC. And those kind of fighters concern me. With Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I feel like he's a little overrated. He is good. I like what I see from him, but he's a little bit overrated. And the price tag he carries right now is unbelievable. Minus 350, maybe even higher in certain spots. So I pick, and he almost made the cut. Just like you said, he's right on the cusp. If you want to bet him, I can't blame you for it. We can't guarantee this particular one, this particular night. So moving right along here. This is a really interesting fight here. I really like this one a lot. Mitch Gagnon versus Dustin, the Hawaiian Kimura, the Diamond Kimura. Dog, seen this one?
Yeah, dog. This fight looks good. The my original pick on this one was Mitch Gagnon, but after further research and remembering what we saw out of Dustin Kimura against Chico Camus at UFC 156, made me think twice. Kimura is a slow starter. But he was fighting a much better striker on the feet with Chico Camus. And Chico Camus went out there and put himself into some bad positions in the second and the third, ultimately the third round, where Dustin Kimura was able to sink in that choke. But Mitch Gagnon, this guy comes on strong to begin with, just like Chico Camus does. And whenever a guy comes on strong, especially when he's from Canada and he's fighting in Canada, you have to think that this guy could finish the fight early. Like I said, Dustin Kimura, slow starter, strong finisher. Gagnon, more of a fast starter, can finish, but it could go either way. Original pick was Mitch Gagnon, but I am going with Dustin Kimura, and I know this kind of just takes back everything I just said, but Dustin Kimura by submission in the first round. I think Gagnon, I think he knows how strong Gagnon is in the first round, and I think he's just going to prove to be the better fighter and take the fight to the ground early and not make the same mistakes early as he did with Chico Camus. So I'm going with Dustin the Diamond Kimura by submission in the first round.
Interesting take, Dog. I agree with you. Some of the observations I made here watching these guys fights is Mitch Gagnon. He comes out there and he the first round, he just comes out there like gangbusters. Just comes out there like somebody who's took a shot of Lasix. Just boom, goes out there and then in the second round, definitely by the third round, he's gassed. That's it. And what we saw with Dustin Kimura and Chico Camus, Chico Camus is just in his last fight, he got so lucky. He lost that fight. In his fight with Kimura, he ended up getting submitted. And with Kimura, I see more upside. I see more potential for him. With Mitch, I don't think that not only do I not think he will win this fight, I don't think he'll be in the UFC for much longer, despite being exciting, and despite being a good fighter or a somewhat decent fighter. When guys out there and they fight like that, they don't stick around very long. The only guys that stick around like that who fight like Gagnon are champions, and Mitch Gagnon's not the champion. And so I see Dustin Kimura here with an advantage on the ground and in the cardio. So I'll see Kimura by second or third round submission. I like him by submission there. And moving right along, we have another interesting matchup here: Canada versus Brazil. We have John McDessie, who's looked so good in his last couple fights, going up against Renan Barao, a guy coming off a victory over a Brit in the UK. Dan, seeing this one?
Yeah, dog. This fight, I'm really excited for it. This guy Renan Barao, went into the UK as a big underdog against Terry Edom and looked awesome, just absolutely awesome. I think he paid out pretty well as a pretty big underdog. But let's face it, Terry Edom, I think I told you this already, Terry Edom looked a lot like George Soteropoulos in his last fight with Ross Pearson, where there's just nothing. He was just standing on the feet, no striking defense, nearly got finished in the second round. I was very surprised to see he didn't get finished. But yeah, basically, Renan Barao was just the better fighter that night and came through. Now some guys like first one that comes to mind is Chris Camozzi They're known for beating guys in their home country, and so this could be a start for something for Renee Forte. But with John Makdessi, ever since his losses to Dennis Hallman and Anthony Njokuani, or was it Njokuani? I think it was Njokuani. Ever since his losses to those two guys, he's been absolutely impressive against Sam Stout, against Darren Cruikshank. These guys are guys that start off fast, and Makdessi isn't exactly a slow or fast starter, but he definitely finds his rhythm in the second and third round, and almost, I shouldn't say almost, but he has won the last two fights by decision, and I don't think it was that close, although I don't think they were completely 30-27s. They were. It was still pretty obvious that Makdessi was going to get the decision in those fights. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think Makdessi's going to go out there, in Canada, and I'm going to be rooting for Makdessi for a finish, because I don't think he's had a finish in a while. And Renee Forte isn't exactly. I know he's coming off of a good win over Terry Edom, and he went pretty long there against Sergio Morai, but I think Makdessi is going to get a decision in this one, and but I'm hoping for a finish. And ultimately, it's just I think the stand-up Makdessi poses are is just going to be too much for Renee Forte. It's going to throw him out of rhythm, and he's just not going to be the same fighter he was against Edom in the UK. But this is MMA, and he could be starting something here. So it's a do not bet.
Yep, good take. I agree with Jon. What we have seen from him in the last few fights has been a vast improvement from his loss to Njokuani, as you pointed out, and also Dennis Hallman. The bottom line of this fight is, can Renee Forte take down John Makdessi? And he can take him down. And he hold him there and submit him? And that's a big task. That's a big order to ask for in this particular fight. I see John Makdessi being able to, use his distance, keep his strike, keep his hands up, and as you pointed out, possibly even getting a finish here. And I like the improvements I've seen out of John Makdessi. I think he'll be able to do it on the feet. And but Renee Forte, as I said, finished a guy, a Brit in the UK, and God knows if he can go out here and finish a Canadian in Canada. So with these, be real careful. They improve a lot of very quickly, and once they get used to travel, it's a tough task. So that's why I can't put my money and back up John Makdessi. But in Canada, that should be a win for him. It should be his win. Then moving along, Ronson, the body snatcher, versus Mitchell, Tractor dos Prazeres. Yeah, seeing this one. I'm gonna stand up for a minute. I'm gonna open up the window because it's getting hot here. So I'll be right back. Go ahead. What do you see here, Jesse Ronson and Michael Prazeres?
Yeah, dog. This fight looks awesome. Let me tell you why. I don't even know how you pronounce this guy. I remember the first time he fought in the UFC against Paulo Thiago. I think they were calling him Michelle. I don't know. And then they were calling him Michael, and it looks like it could be Mitchell. Anyways, I'm just going to call him Tractor, because that's basically what this guy is. He's just a tractor. He just runs over guys. And he looked awesome against Paulo Thiago early, and if it wasn't for his cardio issue, I think he was well on his way to a decision in that fight. With Jesse Ronson, don't know as much about this guy other than the fact that he's from Canada and he's making his UFC debut. And I think that Brazil's going to win in this one just by overall experience. If you don't know enough about Tractor, before his last fight he was undefeated for 16, 17 fights, and Paulo Thiago just out cardioed him. Paulo Thiago, you might be saying, oh yeah, he's on his way out the door and everything. Well, he's still the gatekeeper, basically. He's still basically the guy to beat to get in, and Tractor wasn't able to beat him, and he's still not. Tractor's still not a top guy material, because obviously Paulo Thiago has fought and lost to better competition. But I still feel like this Tractor guy, if he realizes, hey, I just lost this fight, I finally lost a fight and had cardio issues, If I fix that, I don't think I'm going to lose again. And so I see Brazil getting the submission here in the first round against Jesse Ronson. But like I said, don't know enough about Jesse Ronson to make this one a betting pick. This guy, could come out there and do what Paulo Thiago couldn't and finish Tractor. So we'll see what happens. But definitely going Tractor by submission in the first round.
Okay, so with this one, interesting points about the track. Let me tell you a little bit about Jesse Ronson. He is a prospect coming out of Canada, and he's only got 2 losses to his record. Watching some of his fights on YouTube and watching some of his fight footage, he is impressive. The problem is that he's going up against a guy who his nickname is a Tractor. Now, watching some of my fights, his body type for the weight division, he's fighting at 155 pounds, reminds me of what's his face, the tree trunk. What's his name? Samir Balahares. Now, Samir was just a one-trick pony, whereas Michael Tractor, he's more well-rounded. His build, like I said, being built like that for 155 pounds is going to be just a tough order for Jesse Ronson to deal with, because Jesse's going to want to keep the fight on the feet, and the Tractor's going to take him down. So the fight he had with Paul Thiago, it was at 170 pounds. Now he's making he's working his way back down to 155, where he belongs. He looked very, very healthy. He looked very good at the weigh-ins. He didn't look jet lagged. Everything was in order for Dos Prazeres here, and it's tempting for me to place a small to medium wager on him. I'm going to play it safe and see what he can do against Jesse Ronson. But Tractor, he does look good here. I may put him in a round robin. I'll pick 4 guys who are close to even, and put him in a round robin of 2s, of course, no higher than 2s. But that'll probably be the play I'll make on him. But nothing where I feel like, oh yeah, let's go all in on this guy. But it would not surprise me one bit if he gets that first round submission, just overpowers him, boom, takes him down, and that's that. But like I said, Jesse Ronson, he does have height behind him, and it wouldn't be at all shocking. He is a favorite, and he is fighting in Canada if he wins this fight. So it's just better to not bet it unless you're doing a round robin or something on the smaller scale, of course, to see what you can, to see how the current situation, like I said, with strikers against grapplers in Canada versus Brazil, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. So moving right along, Alex Caceres versus Roland Delorme. Dan, what do you see in that fight?
Yeah, dog. This fight I'm actually really excited for. I don't know if you could tell, I was just kind of like glum the last couple of fights you're talking about, because I couldn't believe that they were higher up on the card than this one. Alex Caceres versus Roland Delorme is probably going to be the prelim for me that I'm looking forward to the most. You've got Roland Delorme, who is just a great submission game, and Alex Caceres also a great submission game. Alex Caceres, wicked stand-up. Both guys, a lot of heart. I think both guys are also underrated still. But, this one basically comes down to a couple things. I could see either guy winning a decision here, leaning Roland Delorme. I don't see Alex Caceres getting a submission on Roland Delorme, but I could see Delorme submitting Alex Caceres. And then I see a small, tiny little chance that Alex Caceres goes out there and knocks out Roland Delorme. So just based on that alone, I got to say Roland Delorme is going to win this fight. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a decision, but I think he's going to get a finish after not getting a finish in his last fight, especially fighting in Canada again. So I'm going to go Roland Delorme by submission round 2, but it would not surprise me if Alex Caceres can take that decision, or even a small chance that he gets the knockout on the feet.
All right. Well, I'm gonna sum it up like this for this Roland Delorme guy. He is the Canadian white version of Hani Yahya. And when you see this guy, you see his physically, he's not anything special. He's not the tractor. Like we were talking about the previous fight, and he's not a Nandor. He's nothing to look at. Nothing physically imposing. But he just goes out there and finds a way to drag him down to the ground and work his submissions. And this one breaks my heart because Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, is one of my favorite fighters. I really enjoy watching this guy fight. He makes an exciting fight, and as a person, as an individual who loves watching, watching UFC, watching MMA, watching fighting, he just delivers. He goes out there. He honestly tries to finish. He goes out there, does his thing, and I like for him. But like I've told you guys in the past, you will never get a prediction from me based on who I like. You'll get a prediction on me based who I believe has more of an ability and a chance to finish and win a fight. So I have to put Roland Delorme here. I really like what I saw in his last fight. Just watching these guys fight. Bruce Leroy. One thing I will tell you is he went to go train with Ben Henderson in Arizona. And I like that. That impresses me. But with Roland Delorme, with it being in Canada, with him being this kind of this blanket, one way to describe him is a blanket, and not only just blanket a guy, but also work to choke him, to turn that blanket into a freaking noose. He impresses me, and I have to go with Delorme by submission. And then of course we've got the Toa Paleli versus Krylov fight all over again. Here we got Nandor versus Daniel. And for this particular fight, I want to see what my dog Dan has to say about it.
Yeah, dog. This is one of those fights that I have no interest in betting on at all. I do have a pick, and I'm going to go with Nandor just by having experience in fighting a guy like Josh Barnett, even though he didn't stand a chance. Daniel is supposed to win this fight, and you might be asking yourself, why aren't these guys saying their last name? And it's like, I couldn't even try to tell you how to say it. I don't know if you guys saw the weigh-ins, but Joe Rogan even had a hard time getting these guys' names right, especially Daniel. So I'm just going to stick to the name I know, Daniel. That's me. And Nandor. But I'm going to pick against Daniel, believe it or not. I'm going to go with Nandor just because whenever there's a heavyweight fight, I like to root for the underdog, and since there's just not enough to know about either guy, I think Nandor is going to survive whatever Daniel has in the first round, and get a KO, probably a TKO in the second round. So Nandor is my pick, and hopefully he wins. We'll see.
Dog, that's funny. Watching Nandor's fights. It's in his best interest to keep this fight standing up. So if Nandor does win, it's going to be by knockout. And with Daniel O, he's going to try to get the takedown and work a submission. Now, these two guys, of course, they're heavyweights. And with heavyweights, anything can happen. So it wouldn't surprise me if Daniel's the one that gets the knockout, or if Nandor is the one who gets the submission. But I do have to favor Daniel in this one. I do think he will get the submission. But it's one of those fights where let's just wait and see what these guys do in the UFC rather than base it off of some obscure footage from Poland or from Austria. It's just it can be a little tricky when it comes down to that. So I'm going with Daniel, and that sums up UFC 165. My gosh, what a treat we are in for tomorrow night, and of course, we'll send over the text file, and that way you guys can take a look at not only all our picks, but also the betting picks and the ones that almost made the cut for us, the ones that are do not bet. And then, if you have certain play that you're debating or maybe looking at, you can take a look and see what our thoughts and opinions are on it. But with that all being said, of course, again, I want to thank you guys who are our clients, the ones who have supported us. We appreciate it. We will continue to keep bringing these 5-star, 4-star, and 3-star picks, continue being profitable, continue having success, and of course, always having a good time. There's a time and place for the research, for the homework, for having a good time, for being serious, for everything. There's a time and place for everything. And with this MMA Dawgs thing, my dog and I have found the recipe. We have found what it takes to be successful. And you know, a lot of times it's not easy. You know, sometimes with our schedules, you know, they conflict. Like right now, for example, I'm in the Bay Area, and my dog's down in San Diego. But we find a way to make it happen. We find a way to make sure we are bringing nothing but the best, and that's what we will continue to do. That's what we will continue to guarantee. And with that being said, I'm ready to sign off. I wish you guys all the best of luck. Dan, anything to say?
Yeah, just a couple things, or actually just one thing. As you said, we're 8 hours apart right now. So if there's any kind of audio issue, I'm well aware of that, and we'll have that fixed for next time. That's it, though, but thank you for supporting.
Thank you, guys. Visit our website, MMADAWGS.com. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. You guys have a great night.
If you in Vegas, it's an automatic blast. If you at home or a bar, it ain't bad. Especially if you need a spot, call your ass money bags. MMA Dawgs say, you got money on them, say. If you know who go win, say. MMA Dawgs say, you got money on them, say. If you know who gon' win, say. MMA Dawgs.